Go, she whispered urgently, her face pale with panic. I didn't think. I just bolted for the back door, my heart hammering against my ribs as I heard my best friend Chris's voice call out from the hall, "Mom, Liam, are you guys in here?" Hello everyone and welcome back. Have you ever been in a situation you knew was wrong but couldn't walk away from? One decision, one moment of weakness can bring your entire world crashing down. Today's story is about exactly that. It's a story of blurred lines, dangerous secrets, and an unimaginable price to pay. Before we dive in, press 1 if you're ready. My name is Liam, and at 23, I was just trying to navigate the final years of my business degree at a small college in Ohio. My life was pretty simple: classes, a part-time job at a hardware store, and spending what little free time I had with my best friend, Chris. We'd grown up together, and his house was practically my second home. Until one afternoon, when everything changed irrevocably. It started like any other day. Chris had texted me, asking if I could swing by his place to pick up a textbook I needed for an upcoming exam. He said he'd be home, so I didn't think twice. As I drove down his familiar street, the sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant strokes of orange and purple. The street was quiet, the houses settling into the warm evening glow. I walked up the steps and rang the doorbell, expecting Chris to open it with his usual goofy grin. Instead, I heard hurried footsteps inside, and then the door swung open, and there she was. Mrs. Peterson, Chris's mom, but it wasn't the Mrs. Peterson I knew, the one who always greeted me with a warm smile and an offer of lemonade. This woman stood in the doorway wearing nothing but an oversized men's button-down shirt. Her blonde hair was slightly messy, as if she'd been rushing. Her eyes went wide when she saw me, and for a split second, both of us were frozen. I felt the heat rise in my face, an awkward flush of embarrassment washing over me. I quickly looked down at my feet, trying not to stare, but the image was seared into my mind. Finally, she broke the silence, a strained, awkward smile on her lips. "Oh," she said, her voice soft, almost a shamed whisper. "I was expecting someone else." She pulled the shirt tighter around herself, suddenly aware of how exposed she must have looked. I stumbled over my words. "Hey, Mrs. Peterson, Chris said I could come by and grab that business law book." She blinked, as if trying to snap back to reality. "Right, yes, of course. Come in, Liam." I hesitated for a second before stepping inside. The house smelled like fresh laundry and a faint, pleasant perfume. Mrs. Peterson hurried down the hallway, calling over her shoulder, "Let me just get it." I stood awkwardly by the door, feeling completely out of place. I couldn't help but wonder who she had been expecting. A date? A friend? It was none of my business, but curiosity gnawed at me. She returned a minute later, textbook in hand, now wearing a light cardigan over the shirt. She handed it to me with a warm smile, though a slight redness still colored her cheeks. "Here you go, Liam. Sorry about that situation." "No problem, really," I said with a nervous laugh. There was a moment where we just stood there, the air thick with unspoken things. Her eyes lingered on mine just a little longer than normal before she stepped back. "Chris should be home soon," she said. "But if you're in a hurry, you don't have to wait." I nodded quickly. "Yeah, I should get going. Thanks again." As I turned to leave, I felt her gaze on my back. When I glanced over my shoulder, she quickly looked away. Sitting in my car, I gripped the steering wheel, my heart beating a little faster than it should have been. What just happened? It was probably nothing, just an awkward moment. Mrs. Peterson had been caught off guard. That's all. I shook my head, laughing at myself for overthinking it. But as I drove away, the image of her standing there, vulnerable yet composed, stayed burned in my mind. A few days passed, and I tried to push the strange afternoon out of my head. I kept myself busy with classes, shifts, and late-night study sessions. But every now and then, the memory of Mrs. Peterson in that shirt would sneak its way back into my mind. I'd shake it off, telling myself it didn't mean anything. Then, on a Saturday afternoon, Chris texted me again. "Hey bro, can you swing by later? I left my project notes at home and I need them for Monday." This time, I didn't think twice. I figured he'd be home, and I didn't want him stressing over school stuff. Around 4, I pulled into his driveway. As I turned into the drive, I noticed Chris's car wasn't there. Weird, but maybe he had walked somewhere nearby. I headed up the porch, but before I could even knock, the front door opened. Mrs. Peterson stood there again, this time fully dressed in jeans and a loose sweater. Her face lit up when she saw me, but then her smile faltered slightly, almost as if she remembered our last encounter. "Hey, Liam," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Chris isn't home. He just ran to the store but should be back soon. Do you want to come inside and wait?" Part of me wanted to say no. Part of me knew it was safer to avoid anything remotely awkward. But another part, the stupid, curious part, nodded before I could stop myself. "Yeah, sure, I'll wait." I stepped inside. The house felt quieter than usual. No TV buzzing, no music playing from Chris's room upstairs. "Can I get you something?" Mrs. Peterson offered as she walked toward the kitchen. "Water? Soda?" "I'm good, thanks," I said, sitting on the edge of the couch, trying not to look as uncomfortable as I felt. She poured herself a glass of water and leaned against the kitchen counter, watching me. We started making small talk about school, about how busy work had been. She seemed genuinely interested, asking real questions, not just the polite kind adults usually ask out of obligation. It was easy talking to her, easier than it should have been. "You know," she said after a while, swirling the water in her glass, "this house feels so empty these days. Chris is always out. The silence is strange." I nodded, not sure what to say. "I guess I'm still getting used to it," she added with a soft laugh, though there was a sadness underneath it. "After my husband passed, well, you find out pretty quickly how loud silence can be." I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. Mrs. Peterson wasn't just Chris's mom. She was a woman who had lost a part of her world, trying to navigate life alone. There was a kind of strength in her, but also a loneliness, heavy and visible if you knew how to spot it. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I can't imagine how hard that must have been." She smiled, but her eyes didn't. "You get through it, somehow." There was a long pause, the kind that didn't feel uncomfortable, just heavy. Then she chuckled lightly, shaking her head. "Listen to me, getting all depressing. You didn't come here for a therapy session." She walked closer, standing just a few feet away. She reached out, maybe without thinking, and lightly touched my forearm. "You're a good listener, Liam," she said softly. Her touch was brief, but it sent a jolt through me. I cleared my throat and shifted on the couch. Before I could say anything, we heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Chris, Mrs. Peterson immediately stepped back, her face flushing. I jumped up, trying to act casual, grabbing my backpack and slinging it over my shoulder. The front door opened and Chris walked in. "Hey man," he said, dropping a bag of groceries on the counter. "Sorry for the wait." "No worries," I said quickly. "I just got here." Chris tossed me a folder from his bag. "Here you go." "Thanks for coming, dude." I nodded, mumbling a quick goodbye to Mrs. Peterson, who only smiled politely, her earlier warmth now hidden behind a careful mask. As I walked back to my car, my heart was racing again. But not from fear. It was something else, something dangerous that I knew I shouldn't even be thinking about. How do you ignore a feeling that you know could destroy everything you care about? Press 1 and let us know your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this story. After that, I tried to put it all out of my mind. I told myself I was reading too much into it, that Mrs. Peterson was just lonely, that I was just being stupid. I mean, she was my best friend's mom. She was twice my age. Thinking about her that way wasn't just wrong, it was dangerous, but it wasn't that easy. Every time I saw her, every accidental touch or lingering glance, it chipped away at the wall I was trying so hard to keep up. Then came a night when everything changed. It was a Thursday. Chris had mentioned earlier in the week that he was going on an overnight work trip, some team-building retreat a few hours away. He was supposed to be gone until Friday evening. I had no reason to go to his house, but after work, I remembered I'd left my headphones at his place the last time we studied together. They were expensive, and I didn't want to leave them there too long. So I figured I'd just swing by, grab them, and go. It was already getting dark when I pulled into their driveway. The house looked quiet, just one light on in the living room. I almost hesitated. Maybe I should come back another time, but I was already there. I knocked lightly on the door. A few seconds later, it opened, and there she was. Mrs. Peterson, no, Sarah, barefoot, wearing a long, soft t-shirt that barely reached mid-thigh. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she looked like she had just gotten out of the shower. The second she saw me, she froze. "Oh, Liam," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "I thought—" She stopped herself. It hit me then. She had been expecting someone else, again. Probably a date, maybe even someone she was seeing secretly. The thought hit me hard, a weird, jealous pang twisting in my chest before I could even make sense of it. "I'm sorry," I said quickly, looking away. "I just left my headphones here the other day." She hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside. "It's okay, come in." I stepped inside, the door clicking shut behind me. The air between us felt heavy again, but worse. "I'll just grab them," I said awkwardly, moving toward the living room. "They're upstairs, I think," she said, "in Chris's room." I nodded and hurried up the stairs, finding them exactly where I left them. I grabbed the headphones and headed back down, eager to leave before I made an even bigger fool of myself. But when I got to the bottom of the stairs, Sarah was standing there waiting. She was biting her lip slightly, a nervous habit I'd never noticed before. Her eyes were locked on mine. "You're not who I was expecting," she said softly, almost repeating what she had said that first day. "Yeah, I figured," I said with a nervous laugh. Another long pause. Neither of us moved. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly, shaking her head. This is not how it's supposed to be." "It's okay," I said, not even sure what I was apologizing for. "No, it's not," she insisted, her voice shaking a little. I'm too old to be acting like this." I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. And then she stepped closer, so close I could smell the faint scent of her shampoo, so close I could see the way her chest rose and fell with every shallow breath. I should have walked away, should have said goodbye and left right then and there, but I didn't. Instead, I found myself reaching out, almost without thinking, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Her eyes fluttered shut for a second, and when she opened them again, the fear was still there, but so was something else, something electric. The space between us disappeared. The kiss was soft, hesitant, almost as if we were both waiting for the other to pull away. When neither of us did, it deepened. For just a moment, just long enough to feel the weight of what we were doing crash down on both of us. She pulled back first, her eyes wide, breathing hard. This can't happen," she whispered. "I know," I said, my voice rough. We stood there, inches apart, both of us shaking. She stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself as if trying to build a wall between us. "You should go," she said quietly, almost inaudibly. My heart pounded in my ears. Without another word, I walked to the door, opened it, and stepped out into the cool night air. I didn't look back. When I got to my car, I sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel, trying to calm down, trying to make sense of what had just happened. It wasn't supposed to be like this. It couldn't be like this. And yet, even as I told myself it was over, that it had been a mistake, a moment of weakness, a part of me already knew it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. After that night, everything changed. It was like some invisible line had been crossed, and no matter how much we tried to act normal, it was always there. At first, we kept our distance. I didn't go to Chris's house for a couple of weeks, making excuses that I was busy, but avoiding Sarah didn't make the memory of that night go away. If anything, it made it stronger. One evening, about 3 weeks after the kiss, Chris texted asking me to drop off some notes. I almost said no, but I didn't. When I pulled up, Chris's car was gone. It was just her. Sarah opened the door like she had been waiting. This time, she was fully dressed. No accidental seduction, no mistake. And yet, when our eyes met, the air shifted. "Chris is working late," she said, her voice steady but her eyes uncertain. "Yeah, I figured," I said, stepping inside. I handed her the notes. Her fingers brushed against mine, lingering longer than necessary. "You can stay for a bit if you want," she said, almost too casually. God knows I should have left. But I didn't. We ended up in the living room, pretending to watch TV. The distance between us on the couch was respectable at first. Then a little less, then even less. Neither of us said anything when my hand found hers, or when she leaned her head against my shoulder. It felt inevitable. Our moments were always quiet, slow, like two people holding on to something they both knew couldn't last. We found moments when Chris wasn't around. Afternoons when he was in class, evenings when he was working late. Sometimes it was just sitting together, talking for hours. Sometimes it was more, but we were careful, or at least we thought we were. Every time we touched, every time we kissed, there was always that sharp edge of fear, the constant knowledge that if Chris ever found out, it would destroy everything. One afternoon, Sarah told me that she hadn't felt this alive in years, that after her husband died, she thought that part of her life was over forever. "I don't know what this is," she said quietly, "but it's the first time I've felt anything real in a long time." I didn't know what to say because whatever it was for her, it was real for me too. But reality has a way of catching up with you. One night, maybe 2 months into whatever it was we were doing, I got careless. Chris had texted asking if I wanted to catch a movie, but I didn't answer right away. I was over at their house. Sarah and I were in the kitchen, talking, laughing, probably too loudly. Then I heard the front door open. Chris's voice called out from the hall, "Mom, Liam!" "Are you guys in here?" Panic shot through me like lightning. Sarah's face went pale. Without thinking, she pushed me toward the back door. "Go!" she whispered urgently. I grabbed my jacket and slipped out, trying not to make a sound. I ducked around the side of the house, my heart hammering in my chest. I heard Chris's footsteps inside, heard him calling again. I stayed frozen until the light shifted inside, and I knew he was moving toward the living room. Then I sprinted to my car and got the hell out of there. Later that night, Chris texted me, "Dude, weird. Thought I heard someone at the house. Mom said it was just the neighbors being loud, lol." I stared at the screen for a long time before answering something vague. That night, I didn't sleep. I realized then that we couldn't keep doing this. Not because I didn't want to, not because the feelings weren't real, but because it wasn't sustainable. We were playing with fire, and sooner or later, someone was going to get burned. Sarah must have realized it too. Over the next couple of weeks, things changed. She pulled back. She stopped texting first, stopped finding excuses to invite me over. The last time we saw each other like that, she cried. Not loud sobs, just silent tears slipping down her cheeks as she held on to me like she never wanted to let go. I didn't know what to say. I just held her because there were no good words for what we were doing. There was no right way to end it, but it was ending. We both knew it. It didn't take long for everything to unravel. After that last night, we both knew we were standing on the edge of something we couldn't come back from. It was there in the way she avoided my eyes, in the way her hand lingered on mine for just a second longer than it should have. It was goodbye without the words. I didn't see her for a few weeks after that, burying myself in work and school. Chris kept texting, asking where I'd been. I made a lot of excuses, but guilt is a heavy thing. It wears you down. It was a Saturday afternoon when Chris finally cornered me at our old burger spot. He showed up late, looking distracted and restless. As soon as he sat down, I knew something was wrong. "Liam," he said, skipping the small talk, "I gotta ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me." My stomach dropped. "Yeah, of course." He looked me dead in the eyes. "Have you been weird with my mom?" It wasn't an accusation, not yet. It was confusion, suspicion, but it was enough. I froze for a split second, just long enough for him to notice. Chris leaned back, crossing his arms. "Dude," he said, shaking his head slowly. "What the hell, man?" "I'm sorry," I said, my voice shaking more than I wanted it to. "It wasn't like that. It wasn't planned. It just happened." Chris laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "Is that supposed to make it better? It's over. It's been over." He stared at me like he didn't even recognize me anymore. "You were supposed to be my best friend," he said quietly. I sat there long after he left, staring at the empty seat across from me, feeling the finality of it hit me like a punch to the gut. Later that night, I got a text from Sarah. It was short. "I'm sorry, please don't come here anymore. It's better for everyone." No explanation, no drawn-out goodbye, just a clean break, and she was right. There was nothing left to say, nothing that could fix what had already been broken. I respected her wishes. I stayed away. Chris and I never spoke again. A few months later, I heard that Sarah had started seeing someone, a man her own age, who could offer her the stability she deserved. I was happy for her, at least that's what I told myself. But sometimes, late at night, when the world got quiet, I'd think about her, about those months we spent caught in something bigger than either of us could handle. I think about the cost of our secret, a broken friendship, a fractured family, and two hearts left with the scars of a love that was never meant to be. It was a painful lesson in loneliness, temptation, and the profound consequences of straying from the path even for a moment. Thank you for listening to our story today. The choices we make, especially those made in silence and secrecy, have the power to shape not only our own futures, but the futures of those around us. If this story resonated with you, please press 1 and don't forget to subscribe for more.